In Wyoming's Bitter Creek National Reserve, a team of elite K9 German Shepherds stumbled upon a chilling scene. A forest ranger shackled to a tree, left to perish. What unfolded next is a story so emotional it will bring tears to your eyes. During a routine training mission in the snowy mountains, these highly skilled dogs momentarily slipped away from their handler. Driven by instinct and devotion, they ventured deep into the forest, where they discovered a man, bloodied, frostbitten, and barely clinging to life, chained to a frozen pine. This wasn't just any man. It was a ranger, abandoned in the wilderness to die. Instead of panicking or scattering, the dogs acted with astonishing precision, executing a rescue so heartfelt and human-like that it left hardened officers weeping. This tale isn't only about survival. It's a profound reminder of trust, bravery, and how the ones we assume depend on us can become our saviors. Before we dive in, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and enable notifications to keep these incredible stories of loyalty, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between humans and dogs coming your way. Snow blanketed the trails of Bitter Creek, transforming the reserve into a shimmering, icy expanse. Few brave this remote Wyoming wilderness in winter, except rangers like James Harlan. At 42, Thomas had dedicated 2 decades to safeguarding the land, its wildlife, and its visitors. But on this day, he wasn't patrolling or rescuing hikers. He was a prisoner, chained to a tree. His breath came in shallow, frosty gasps. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead, freezing on his numb cheek. Thick chains bound his chest and arms, pinning him to the rough bark as if he were part of it. His wrists, tied behind him, were raw and bleeding from his struggles. His torn uniform was soaked with blood and melted snow. Numbness had claimed his fingers, and consciousness was slipping away. 2 days had passed since he'd been ambushed. He recalled the voices, harsh, muffled behind ski masks, demanding access to the reserve for illegal hunting and logging. Thomas had refused, so they left him to freeze, ensuring no one would find him. But something was approaching. A faint rustle broke the silence, followed by soft thuds in the snow. Thomas forced his swollen eyes open, fearing another hallucination. The cold had tormented him with visions for hours. Then he saw them, 5 dark shapes moving swiftly through the snow. His heart raced. Wolves? Survival training kicked in. Stay still, show no fear. But as they neared, he realized these weren't wild animals. They were K9 German Shepherds, their thick coats dusted with snow, their golden eyes sharp and focused. Each moved with purpose, like a disciplined unit. The largest dog, clearly the leader, stepped forward, sniffing the air. He locked eyes with Thomas, and then something extraordinary happened. The dog didn't bark or growl. He sat calmly in front of Thomas, ears alert, chest proud, like a guardian statue. Another dog sniffed the tree's base, while a third circled the area, and the others spread out in what seemed like a tactical formation. These weren't stray dogs, they were trained. Tears stung Thomas's eyes, a mix of emotion and biting wind. His voice was gone, but he whispered, "Good boys." The lead shepherd, marked by a scar above his left eye, stepped closer and sniffed the chains. He let out a single, sharp bark that echoed through the forest. Thomas didn't know if anyone would hear, but the dogs acted immediately. One began digging around the chain, exposing a padlock. Another leaped, barking skyward as if signaling for help. It was as if they understood the situation perfectly. Time blurred as Thomas faded in and out of consciousness. Just before darkness took him, he heard voices, distant, urgent, and running footsteps. A human voice shouted, "He's over here." Through the haze of snow and pain, Thomas saw a police officer flanked by handlers emerging from the trees. The dogs had done it. They brought help. As his vision dimmed, he caught one last sight. The scarred leader standing nearby, watching him not with curiosity, but with quiet understanding. Then Thomas blacked out. He awoke to the sterile smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of a heart monitor. Pain throbbed through every inch of his body, as if he'd been hammered into pieces. The harsh lights of the ranger station's infirmary burned his eyes, and the warmth felt suffocating after days in the frozen wilderness. A nurse appeared, her voice soft. "You're safe now. You're lucky they found you in time." Thomas tried to speak, but his throat rasped. "The dogs, where are they?" She smiled. "They're outside, the K9 unit that saved you. They've been waiting, especially the big one with the scar." Thomas sank back into the pillow, relief washing over him. It wasn't a dream. The dogs were real. Later, Sheriff Colton visited, his weathered face showing both relief and restrained anger. In his 50s, Dalton was a solid, unyielding figure. "Grady," he said, pulling a chair close, "you've got a hell of a story." Thomas nodded weakly. "How'd they find me?" Dalton leaned back, arms crossed. "Our K9 team was training in the eastern woods when a sudden snowstorm separated them from their handler. We thought they were lost, but they returned to the main station, barking, covered in snow. Handler Laura Quinn sensed something was off, trusted them, and followed on an ATV. They led her right to you." Thomas's chest tightened. "They saved my life." Dalton nodded, then opened a folder with a forest map and handwritten notes. "You were chained in a sector unpatrolled for 5 years. No trails, no campsites, no roads. Whoever did this chose a place where bodies vanish." Thomas clenched his jaw. "Illegal operations. They wanted me silent." Dalton muttered, "We'll find them." Then Dalton opened the door, and in walked a large German shepherd, calm and steady, his scarred eye still piercing. He paused in the doorway, ears forward, then approached Thomas's bed and rested his head gently on the mattress. "Meet Honor," Dalton said. 8 years old, retired military K9. Lost his handler overseas and never adjusted, doesn't bond, doesn't trust. But for some reason, he chose you. Thomas's trembling hand touched Honor's thick fur. The dog leaned into it, closing his eyes as if it were his only comfort. Laura Quinn, the handler, stepped in, her blonde braid tight, her brown eyes warm. "Honor's never acted like this," she said softly. "Not since his partner died. Something changed when he found you." Thomas looked at her, then the dog. "I wasn't just a rescue to him. He felt what I felt." Rachel nodded. "He stayed by you until we sled you out, kept looking back like he didn't trust us to handle it." Suddenly, the door burst open. A deputy, pale and shaken, stammered, "Sheriff, we've got a problem. Fresh tire tracks in Sector 12, and cut chains. Someone was there last night." Dalton's face darkened. "They came back." Thomas sat up, pain flaring. "They think I'm still out there, covering their tracks." The room fell silent. Honor's ears sharpened, his body tense. Something was stirring. The ranger station felt eerily still, snow falling softly outside. Inside, tension hung thick. Deputies whispered behind doors, and Dalton stayed glued to the comms room after the tire track discovery. Whoever had returned wasn't done. Thomas sat by a window, a thermal blanket around him, his hands bandaged, bruises darkening his jaw and ribs. His mind was clear now, but the forest seemed to hold its breath, hiding something in its silence. Honor lay at his feet, alert, breathing steady, his scarred eye a testament to survival. Rachel entered with a mug of coffee. "Still skipping the painkillers?" she asked. Thomas took the cup, their fingers brushing. "They cloud my head. I need to stay sharp." She sat beside him, voice low. "Feds are coming. This isn't just poaching. It's too organized, too precise. Someone planned to leave a man for dead." Thomas looked at Honor. "And someone didn't plan on them." Rachel tilted her head, confused. Thomas leaned closer. "No one sent those dogs, but they found me. Something guided them." Rachel paused, not doubting but understanding. She'd trained K9s for years and knew when logic alone wasn't enough. "Honor hasn't left you," she said. "Even when I call, he waits for your nod." Thomas glanced at the dog, who met his gaze. He's like the ranger I was, loyal, relentless, always watching. Rachel hesitated, then asked, "Could he work with you?" Thomas blinked. "He's retired, isn't he?" "Too much trauma," they said. Rachel smiled faintly. "He's never connected like this. If you wanted him, you'd train together, build the bond. But I think he's already yours." Thomas didn't reply immediately. He and Honor locked eyes, an unspoken agreement passing between them. "If he's in," Thomas whispered, "I'm in." He and Honor locked eyes, an unspoken agreement passing between them. "If he's in," Thomas whispered, "I'm in." A sharp bark broke the quiet. Honor, standing, ears back, nose high. Rachel stood, alarmed. "What is it, boy?" Another bark, urgent. Then a faint clang, metal on metal, from the garage. Thomas grabbed the radio. "That's the garage door." Before he could speak, the lights went out, plunging the station into darkness. Rachel's flashlight beam shook as she whispered, "Stay here. I'll check." But Honor growled, blocking the door. Thomas's voice was steady. "He says you're not going alone." A shadow flickered past the window, followed by shattering glass at the station's far end. Rachel raised her radio. "Intruder, south entrance." "Repeat, south entrance." A loud bang echoed before she finished. Thomas grabbed an old hatchet from the wall. "We move." Honor led, eyes sharp, body low, guiding them through the dark corridors past empty rooms. The generator hadn't restarted. Every step felt like a trap. Then they heard it, a low male voice, close. "I told you he wouldn't die out there." Thomas's blood froze. They were back, and this time, they weren't leaving witnesses. Footsteps echoed, slow and deliberate, in the concrete halls. The intruders were confident, too confident. Thomas tightened his grip on the hatchet, adrenaline dulling his pain. Honor moved silently beside him, a shadow in the dark. Rachel followed, her flashlight sweeping in controlled bursts, her sidearm ready. They checked the supply room. Empty. Then the south hallway, silent. Breathing came from behind the generator room door. Thomas signaled for quiet. Honor stiffened, ears twitching. Thomas whispered to Rachel, "We opened that door. We don't know what's there. You ready?" She nodded, finger on the trigger. Thomas kicked the door open. Nothing, or so it seemed. Rachel's light revealed tools, a toppled chair, a spilled oil can. Then a flash of steel. "Back!" Rachel yelled as a man lunged from behind the generator, swinging a crowbar. Thomas dodged, the metal missing his head by inches. Honor reacted instantly, leaping and clamping his jaws on the man's arm. The crowbar clattered to the floor. The man screamed, "Stupid dog," but Honor held firm. Thomas pinned the man's other arm against the wall. "Thought you'd kill me and walk away," he growled. The intruder struggled, but between Thomas's grip and Honor's bite, he was trapped. Rachel cuffed him, reading his rights calmly. Blood dripped from the man's mouth as he grinned. "You think I'm alone?" Thomas froze. Rachel barked, "Check the perimeter, now." They left the man restrained and rushed outside. Flashlights flickered in the distance, shadows moving. Gunfire cracked. Pop, pop, pop. A deputy's voice came over the radio. "West side, they're breaching the garage." Thomas saw two masked figures breaking into the vehicle bay, weapons drawn. A snowmobile roared to life. "They're heading for the North Ridge," Rachel said. "If they hit the woods, they're gone." Thomas looked at Honor. "Can you stop them?" As if answering, Honor bolted through the emergency exit, paws skimming the snow. Thomas and Rachel followed, the wind screaming through the trees. Headlights flashed in the clearing. One intruder revved the snowmobile. But Honor slammed into him, knocking him into a snowbank. The second raised a gun, but Thomas threw the hatchet, striking the man's hand. The weapon flew. Rachel tackled him. Deputies swarmed, cuffing the intruders. Thomas stood, chest heaving, soaked and shaking. Then he saw Honor limping, a bullet graze on his leg. Thomas knelt, opening his arms. Honor leaned into him, head on his chest. "You saved us again," Thomas whispered. "You saved everyone." But something deeper stirred. This wasn't just rescue. It was purpose. The station was secure, but unease lingered. Deputies spoke in low tones, the intruders now in custody. Honor's graze was treated, a clean wound, bandaged but not crippling. Thomas sat with him in the medical bay, hand on his chest. Honor's steady breathing calmed him, but his eyes stayed on the door, expecting trouble. Rachel entered with a thick file. "They're not talking," she said. "No names, no prints, no IDs." Thomas frowned. They knew too much, patrol routes, the generator. Rachel handed him a smaller folder. "Look at this." Inside was a form. Luke Carver, civilian contractor, granted access 4 weeks ago for camera maintenance. Thomas hadn't signed it. The signature was forged. "Someone inside," he said. Rachel nodded grimly. That night, Thomas stepped outside, Honor limping beside him. Snow fell gently, cloaking the world in false peace. Sheriff Colton stood alone by the north perimeter, staring into the woods. Thomas paused, uneasy. Dalton turned, his smile forced. "Couldn't sleep?" Thomas eyed him. "Something like that." Dalton gestured to the trees. "Funny, isn't it? All these years, and the real threat wasn't wildlife." Thomas stayed silent. Dalton stepped closer. "They just wanted a deal. I didn't know they'd chain you up. That wasn't the plan." Thomas's blood ran cold. "You," he whispered. Dalton's face hardened. "You blocked permits, dug into buried reports. They paid me to look away. That's all it was." Thomas's fists clenched. "You left me to die." Dalton nodded. "I didn't think you'd survive that storm. I didn't count on him." He glanced at Honor, who growled, body tense. Dalton reached for his belt. Honor lunged, pinning him down. Thomas didn't stop him. "You betrayed your oath. You betrayed me." Rachel and deputies arrived, the truth unraveling. The forged documents exposed Dalton's lies. The man who'd led them for years was arrested silently. But Thomas knew the rot went deeper. He turned to Rachel. "Everything he touched, permits, reports, it's tainted. We start over." She nodded. "Together." Thomas looked at Honor. With him. Honor paced that night, restless, ears alert. Thomas sat by the fire, watching the shadows. "You knew," he said. Honor's eyes stayed on the darkness. Something wasn't finished. Days later, investigators swarmed, unearthing Dalton's network of illegal land deals and silenced rangers. Thomas gave statements, the betrayal stinging like a fresh wound. He'd trusted Dalton, worked beside him, fought fires with him. Yet Dalton had left him chained to die. Honor stayed close, following Thomas through every step. Deputies now saw him as more than a dog, a brother, a legend. On the third night, Thomas stood by the station's fence, stars sharp above. Rachel approached. "They're offering you a transfer, Helena, desk job, full benefits." Thomas looked at Honor, who wagged his tail once. "Do I look like a desk guy?" Rachel smiled. "Not a bit." She handed him an envelope. "K9 division, if you want it. Honor's cleared for duty under you." Thomas opened it. "Ranger Tactical K9 Unit Echo." "Think I'm ready?" he asked. Rachel glanced at Honor. "You already are." Thomas knelt, stroking Honor's fur. "What do you say, partner?" Honor barked softly, a yes. But peace felt fragile. Strange signs emerged, misplaced equipment, odd tracks, radio static. One night, alone in the comms cabin, the security feed cut to static. Honor stood, tense. Emergency lights flickered on. Thomas grabbed his flashlight and weapon, following Honor to the fence. A metallic clink echoed. Chains, like his nightmares. A figure darted behind a tree. "Show yourself," Thomas shouted. No answer. Then, in the moonlight, a badge gleamed. Thomas's stomach dropped. It wasn't over. He didn't sleep, haunted by the badge. Someone else inside was watching. By morning, Rachel formed a team, but the intruder's tracks were gone, erased with skill. Thomas and Honor exchanged a look. Trust, forged in fire. That afternoon, they checked an old patrol cabin in Sector 9, marked unsafe by Dalton. Honor leaped from the truck, hackles up. Fresh footprints circled the cabin, the lock tampered. Rachel drew her gun. "We're not alone." They entered, Honor at Thomas's side. A gunshot shattered the silence, splintering wood. Rachel ducked, Thomas dove. The bullet hit Honor, who yelped and collapsed, blood pooling. Thomas crawled to him, pressing the wound. "Stay with me, buddy." The shooter stepped forward, Deputy Evan Bryce, Dalton's man. "You should have stayed dead, Ranger," he sneered. Dalton was just the face. I built this. Thomas stood, hands bloody. You shot my dog. Howie smirked. He ruined everything. Rachel, unseen, tackled Howie from behind, cuffing him. Thomas lifted Honor, wrapping him in his jacket. Don't give up, he whispered. Rachel called for evac. The vet confirmed Honor would survive. The bullet missed vitals. Thomas stayed through surgery. The story spread. Ranger chained, dog hero. News crews came. But Thomas spoke for duty, not fame. When Honor woke, his tail wagged weakly. Thomas smiled, tears falling. You're coming home, partner. Spring arrived. A new unit rose. Echo K9, led by Thomas, with Rachel as station chief. Honor returned, slower but unyielding. They patrolled together, protectors known to all. If danger came, loyalty stood ready, eyes sharp, heart steadfast. If this moved you, remember, true courage has 4 legs and never falters. Subscribe, like, and share this story with someone who needs to believe in loyalty.